Okay, welcome back. It's been a little while, but I finally thought I'd get a kick on with this little project, and it's been sitting around for a little while, so I'm getting sort of anxious to knock it out. This is, I guess, what they call a pit bike. I think it's a 90cc. It's a curb find, so it's a little bit rough, but it's basically all there. And we're going to check it out and just see exactly what we've got here. Right, so I'm not sure how well this will show up, but we'll have a bit of a look. See, engine size here, that's a 9, it's a 90cc. It's 2012, 05-2012 is when it was built. And something 90AX. So as it sits, we've got brakes on the back, we've got tyre, suspension, no back guard. The seat is wrecked, but we've got the plastics that go with it. It comes straight off. So you can see there it's got the plastics both sides. We've got tank, exhaust is complete, engine and carb are all there. Throttle's not stuck. Front tyres half decent. It doesn't hold air. I've tried pumping these up. The back holds air, the front doesn't. We've got all the brakes are there on the front. Not sure if they work at all, but they're there, so that's a good start. So we've got a fair bit of corrosion on the forks there, so we'll clean that up. And I don't think the fork seals are actually leaking. Nothing wet coming out of them. Handlebars are rusty. We'll see if we can clean those up. Just little bits like this, just clean it up, give it a paint. Yeah, this is front brake is just like nothing. It's rock hard. You can see the sight glass is missing out of that too, so that won't even hold fluid. So if that's jammed, then that's dead, so I'd say the whole thing's had it. Anyway, we'll look further into that soon. So the back brake, we've got movement there. The sight glass is just a mess. So the engine, let's see. It's got a bit of compression there. Right, so it's not stuck, it's got compression. So that's a really good start. So we'll get that plug out and we'll see if we can get some spark. Alright. Oh, let's get that plug out of there. We have spark. So if we got compression and we got spark, I think if we squirt a little bit of fuel down there, it might pop over. So I think I might do that. So I can't find my little squirt bottle, so this funnel will have to do. Hopefully I don't spill it too much. I still can't. Yeah, I've got a bit of two-stroke here. That'll do it. Still can't find half my stuff in this workshop, but I'm sure it'll slowly all turn up. Right, there we go. Whoops, yeah, that's plenty. Alright, get that plug back in and give it a kick. So before we do that, let's just quickly check that it's actually got some oil in it. Yeah, that looks like it's seen better days, but let's see if we can get it out. Nope. come prepared with some grips. Okay, that's got it. And yes, it's got a dipstick. Well, it's got oil. It's looking pretty black, but oh no, it's not so bad. It's alive. Well, for the short time it ran, I didn't hear any clanking and rattling, so that could be a good thing. Okay, so now that we know it's actually going to run, we need to get it to stay running. So I think the next thing I'll do, I'll get this tank off, and that'll enable me to give it a bit of a swish out. Who knows what's in there. And we'll get that carby off, because who knows what's in there. So let's get on with that. Look how tiny that is. It's an 8mm. The other side, that's already halfway out. Okay, hopefully that gasket's still intact. Yep, that'll do. Okay, let's get it over on the bench, see what's inside. Right, so let's get this carby apart. It's looking pretty grubby, and that air cleaner's seen better days. Pretty rusty, so I think we'll get a new one of those. Anyway, get this fuel line off. Right, so this looks like it's in the way of the float bowl there. So we'll give it a go. 2 screws, we'll see if it'll come off. If not, I'll get these off and then it'll come free. Just won't get past that little bit there, so that's coming off. Try and hold that bowl in place so it doesn't all fall apart on me, so I can see. Nothing worse than when things come apart and bits fall out and you didn't get a chance to see where they came from, so you're kind of playing jigsaws from that point on. Okay, we've got an O-ring seal in there. And another one on there. Okay, right, the bowl's coming off. Yeah, those jets are looking pretty gungy. Bit of something going on in there. But not too bad. Probably needs a new gasket around here, but the float height is correct. It shouldn't leak out of there, so we'll just clean that and reuse it. Alright, we'll get that float off. That's so small. Alright, see if we can get these jets out. Alright, that's come out with the emulsion tube. That is blocked badly, so definitely wouldn't have run. Well, it may have started and idled, depending on what this idle jet's like. Pilot. There we go. I can't see through that either, so I'm going to say it sounded like I could blow through it, but I can't see light through it, so I'm going to say that's blocked as well. See how many turns this is out. That's pretty much hard up. Spring. What else have we got on here? Just needs a clean up. So it stinks. So I'm going to clean that up and clean those jets out, and we'll reassemble it and put it back on the bike. Right, so we got the carb back on. I didn't bore you with putting it all back together because there's, you know, how many videos on YouTube about pulling carbies apart, cleaning them and putting them back together. So anyway, it's back together. Suffice to say, both the main jet and the pilot jet were completely clogged. The rest of it's pretty good. It could probably do with a carby kit, but we're going to go with it. If it doesn't leak, I'll just go with it. So we're back together. Actually, we're not back together because I haven't put this back in yet. So I'll get this back on, I'll put some fuel in, and we'll give it a kick and see what it does. I was half expecting it to have a leak, but I'll take that. It's doing nothing. Right, so choke. Give it a bit of a choke. Is that off? No. There we go. That's choked. Right, she doesn't want to go. I might just pop that plug out, make sure we haven't lost spark. No spark. Right, let's take a look at this boot. Ugh. That looks bad. I might just cut a bit off there, put this back on, and we'll try it again. Yeah, there we go. Nice fresh bit of wire there. If this doesn't work, we'll try a different plug. Okay, we've got our spark back, so we'll try that again. Oh, yes, straight away. Sounds a little bit knocky in the top end. Just give it a chance to get the oil around the place. But you can always check those valve clearances. Might be worthwhile. But it's going. Actually, with anything, curiosity's got the better of me. I thought I'll turn it off and see if it fires straight back up. Yep. Right, so we've got it up on a milk crate there, so I'll start it up and I'll run it through the gears just to see if our transmission is working. going by that, it should ride now. So starts, runs, in theory rides. So I might just test the theory. I think I'm a bit big for it. Right, I'll call that a successful first try. I might just set it back on the lift properly and start it up again and just have a little tweak on that carburetor, see if we can dial it in a bit more now that it's warmed up. Right, so on further inspection, I've noticed this front tyre is a lot worse than I realised. It's really starting to crack apart there. But all I want it to do is hold air for now, so I've got a tube, so I'll put that in. That should do just for the moment, and we'll look at getting another tyre on there at some point. Anyway, let's start her up again and have a little tweak on this carby. So I'll adjust the idle speed and the idle mixture. See if I think we'll leave it there. It's about as good as it's going to get. So also when I was tweaking on that carby, I noticed there's fuel leaking from somewhere here. So I'm not sure if it's from there or from actually in here. But I think we'll get this off and we'll have a bit of a play with it. And since I started doing this video, I've had a few bits and pieces arrive. So one of them is a new one of these. So I'll put that on at the same time. Okay, so we have a nice new fuel line and fuel filter fitted. You can see it's got its little arrow in there showing the direction. I've also got a new air cleaner, so I'll just put that on. So they're the best looking parts of the bike. Anyway, I've had a play with this fuel tap here and it was leaking from here. I've put another rubber seal there. I did take this apart in here and just give it a once over, and there's a little round rubber thing with 4 little holes in it that's behind here. So I just kind of flipped that over because the other side doesn't get any wear. It's this that rubs against it and opens and closes the little galleries. So it's working quite well. There we go. And a bit of luck, we're dry there. All good. Okay, so the next thing I think I might do with this is check the valve clearances, because I really had no idea what the condition of this motor was before I started playing with it. So I want to just check those, make sure they're in spec. And apart from an oil change, that should be just about it. This motor seems to go quite well. So I finally managed to get these valves adjusted. I've had a bit of a drama just working out what's going on with this thing, because of course in theory you just get it on top dead center, put your socket in here, turn it over, you go until you see the mark in there, and then your valves should be rocking when they're on top dead center compression. I went around twice and I got no movement both times. So on one time around they're on the cam lobe, and on the other time around they're on off the cam lobe, but they were so tight I couldn't get any movement out of it. So I was kind of having a bit of a moment about which was the right stroke I was on. So I'll show you an easy way that I've found to just confirm it. So we're over on the other side of the engine now. I've got the spark plug out. So when it's on the wrong stroke, you're going to have one of the valves open. When it's on compression stroke, obviously you're going to have none of them open. So the way I made sure of it, obviously I can tell the piston's at top dead center. You can put a screwdriver down in there, but I've got this piece of hose, so I put it up against the plug hole, I blow air through it, and I should hear air coming out either the inlet or the exhaust, because one of them will be open. So I know I'm on exhaust stroke, or it's the exhaust port's open. So we'll spin it around once more and we'll try that little trick again. Right, so let's get this thing on top dead center compression stroke. So you can see the arrow there. So we'll go right round the whole turn. You can see how dirty and corroded and that flywheel is. So I had to sort of try and clean that up a bit before I could even see the line. And there we go. Got a little bit there because they're actually set correctly now. Right, so we are on top dead center compression stroke. Okay, just to finish off on the valve adjustment aspect of it, I did look up online, and from what I found out, the inlet is, we'll talk in thou, 4 thou, which equates to 0.1 of a mil, and the exhaust is 6 thou, which is, you just see that, 0.15. So while I was adjusting clearances, I thought I'd just do the plug as well. The spec for that was 0.6. It's a bit hard to see, but I'm going to guess that the equivalent to that's about 25 thou. That's roughly what plugs are set at, so we should be all good there. So the next thing I'll do is I'll fire this back up. I'll let it warm up for a little bit, and then I'll dump that oil out, and we'll just see what comes out of it. So our oil drain plug is under here, and it's a 17 mil. Right, we'll let that drain a bit, and we'll come back and fill it up with some nice clean oil. So I'm not exactly sure how much it takes, but I'll just keep going until I see it get to the mid to high mark on the dipstick, and we'll call it there. And another new part that came in was a new dipstick. So you can see they're pretty much the same length. So I'm going to be using the new one. Plenty. Right, so for those of you who are curious, let's have a quick look in here. Let's try and shine a light through the bottom. Nothing really nasty, so that's kind of pleasantly surprising. So we are flipped around in the bike stand here because I think it might be up to a point where we start addressing this flat tyre. I'm going to need to pull that front wheel off at a minimum. I suppose I could drop those forks out, clean that rust off, see how much fork oil is actually in there, pull those handlebars off, clean them up. I've actually got some new brake parts as well, because we know this has had it, there's no saving that, so we'll try and start resurrecting those brakes as well, and see what we can make of it. Okay, so what was meant to be a quick update to say, look, I've got the new tube in the front wheel and it's holding air now, turned into pulling all the front end apart. I've just redone the head bearings there because they were like notchy, so they're all smooth now. I've got the forks off, got the tops cracked on there, so I can just wind them off. There's our front wheel, and the reason that I don't have the tyre and tube back in, you'll see I've got two dead tubes here and one very dead tyre. So this tyre is so hard and stiff that I just ended up, in the struggle to get it on the rim, I ended up pinching the tube. So bit of a fail, but get a load of this. It's just, look at it, it just tore apart. So that's kind of what I did, but I don't know that I actually did that. So how does that happen? Anyway, I've got a brand new tube and tyre coming, so that should just pop nicely on that rim. So the next thing that I'll be doing is emptying the contents of those forks out, and I've got all my front brake components here. So I've managed to squeeze the pistons back in, so it's looking good that these aren't jammed, and the pads are pretty good actually. Maybe that's because they haven't been working for a long time, so they haven't had to wear out. Anyway, I've got a new one of those, the master cylinder, I guess you could call it. So yeah, got some things to do, and I'll show you more as I go. And just in case you were wondering, right, so let's get the oil tipped out of these forks. I'm not expecting a great deal to come out, but at least I'll get an idea on how much is supposed to go back in. Oh, spill. That is just filthy. And thin, yeah. That's about it. So if we allow for a little bit that I spilt, 150, 160, 170. 170 we'll go with. It's pretty watery too. Alright, we'll see what comes out of the other one. Okay, here we go, fork number 2. Try not to spill this one. Caught me a bit unaware before for how light and runny it was. I think we're going to fall way short on this one. It's creeping up. So fork number 2, we're looking not far short of the other one. So I think we'll put about 170 back in. Really light oil. So I have seen people put auto trans fluid in these things, small bike forks, so My vintage bike, my GT185, it said put sort of 1030 engine oil in, but this is a bit too thin for that, so I might go with the auto transmission fluid just for the hell of it. I've got a stack of that, so as long as it doesn't leak out and it works, that's all that matters. Okay, so we'll get 170 mils of this in here, and then we'll pour it into the forks. Get it close, a little bit more. That'll do. Okay, in it goes, without spilling it. It's gurgling. Right, good to go. So, spacer and cap. Snug that O-ring down. I'll tighten that more when it's in the bike. Okay, I'll do the next one, but you don't need to see that. It's just the same as the first one. Okay, time for a quick update. You'll see I've got things reassembled somewhat here. I've cleaned all that rust off the forks, treated it with some rust converter, so hopefully it won't come back. Painted it with rust sort of resistant silver, so hopefully that will stay looking half decent. Got the handlebars on, same thing, painted them up. Got some new grips on, got the new brake master cylinder on and connected. It's all still sort of loose at the moment. We've got our other grip on here, kill switch is mounted, not flopping around like it was. Front brakes are mounted up down here. Front wheel's on temporary because I've got to put the tyre on, which new tyre and tube have just arrived, so I'll show you that in a minute. But we've got a few loose spokes here somewhere. There's one of them. There's a couple more around the place, and got a bit of a buckle in the room there. That's just scraping a little bit because it's not, the wheel's still not set up in there, so a little bit of rubbing on the brakes, that's no big deal. So the next thing I'll be doing is putting that new front tyre and tube on, so I'll save myself the embarrassment of videoing that, and I'll bring you back when it's done. So here we have front tyre fitted to the bike, and while you weren't watching, I've primed this brake system. You can see the fluid in there, nice blue fluid. We've got a pretty good amount of pressure there. So we can see our front brakes are working, and I think that's about it for the front. So I'll get this bike flipped around again, and we'll start having a closer look at that back end. I can already see things like that need a lot of attention, and I've already realised earlier that this tensioner is just non-existent, so I've actually got a brand new one coming from that. I've got a chain guard coming from there, and anyway, we'll get it flipped around and we'll look closer. Okay, let's take a bit of a closer look at the back end of this bike. So the first obvious thing is this mess here. The good thing is it doesn't seem like any of the links jammed. It's all moving quite freely, so maybe that's just needs a clean up and a lubricate, and we'll be able to use that again. So let's just pop this stand down out of the way. So we've got a chain tensioner here, and that's just supposed to have a pin and a roller here to keep this tight, and of course the bits are missing. So here's the replacement. So you can see we've got the roller there, there's the pin that's missing. So we'll get that on there once we sort this chain out. Well, we'll get the chain off, we'll sort this out, and then we'll put it all back on. Now, the shock, that'll out of this. That's the bottom mount, and the top mount, let's see if we can see that. That's not much better. So we'll reuse the old shock, because I don't want to buy another one for it. But I do have some bushings, some new bushings to go in there. So I've got 2 of those, and hopefully it'll reconstitute that old shock, but I won't be surprised if it's clapped out as well. But it is what it is, and that's as good as it's going to get. So anyway, let's pop around the other side and see what we got there. Right, so the main problem on this side, we've got the brakes here, everything else seems okay so far. Glaring obvious is this. So in order to get the brakes working, I've got a replacement. So we'll get that on and get it bled and see if we can get some brakes. That's about it. I might look into putting a bit of lube on that brake pivot. That's actually bent around the corner a bit, so we'll straighten that up. These pegs, they're kind of crunchy a bit, so anyway, we'll work that out once we get these main problems sorted. I'm not sure if this has got a buckle. It's hard to spin it, so once I get some of these, the chain and some of these things that are grabbing on there off, we'll be able to have a look at the pads on here, spin this a bit more, see if it's buckled, and if it is, we'll straighten that up, and we'll see what we got from there. Right, so let's get this chain off. Got our master link right here. Right, we'll get this tensioner off now. It's got a spring here, a circlip here, so we'll get the right tools and we'll get that off. Right, so we are finally on. That took quite a bit of doing to get this spring on, and this was not a very good fit on here, so I packed it up with some washers either side so it doesn't flop around so much, but it's pretty much functioning. There's a lot of tension on that for a real flimsy setup, but I guess that's just how these things are made. Alright, let's get this shock off and see what we got here. Looks pretty flogged out in there. And that one's not even installed properly. Alright, let's have a quick check of these swing arm bushings. Well, that is surprising, considering the state of the shock bushings. Those swing arm bushings are actually pretty good. Okay, we can now get the shock back in now that we've got those bushings pressed in, and tighten it all up. Put a little bit of grease on each of the bolts just so it's got a bit of lube, a bit of movement, and we'll see how that looks. Right, we'll see if we've got any movement in those bushings now. Oh, that's a bit tragic. That's not the bushing, that's the bolt. It's got to be. Okay, there's a little story to tell here about this shock absorber. Well, not the shock absorber, but the bushings. So, the story is, this is what come out of it. It's fairly firm, you can squeeze it. That's the centre. This is the bush that I bought new, and you can see it's just like nothing. There's nothing to it. It even cut some of that while I was trying to put it in. So when I checked to see the slop in the bottom of the top, it was not moving on the bolts, it was moving on, it was pretty much this moving inside that. Anyway, I have solved the problem already. So this is a suspension bushing from my car, from the leaf spring shackles, I guess you could call it, and that's pretty hard. That looks soft, but it's pretty firm. So I pushed that in there, chopped off the excess. This is loose in there, but this is tight in there. So once it got pushed in, the inner hole closed up and that little metal collar was quite snug, so I've done that top and bottom, and now a tiny bit there. There's a little bit of movement in both, but nothing like it was. So I have actually skipped ahead somewhat. I've had this back wheel off because I've removed this caliper. It's back on again now, but I'll tell you what I did. I took that off so that there was no drag on here, just so that this would spin freely. You can hear it's just dragging a little bit, but you just tweak on that a little bit. So in these bearings in here, they were a little bit crunchy, a little bit of movement, so I took it off. It really probably could do with a set of wheel bearings, but this bike's going to be for a kid, so, or a big kid, but either way it's not going to be going down the road fast or on the highway, if you know what I mean. It's going to be going in the dirt or not great speeds, so I think that's good enough. Considering the rest of the bike's pretty rough, this is probably par for the course. So put it back in. I actually sprayed some chain lube into the bearing there just to get it. It was a bit grindy. Now it spins nice and free. There's no discernible buckle. It's got a slight woof in it, up and down, but same reason, it's not going to be going too fast. So anyway, onto the back brake caliper. I haven't had this apart, but I have had these sliders separated from the mounting bracket, and put a bit of lube in there so the sliders are working nicely. They're not binding up. While it was off, I did manage to undo the bleed nipple there, squeeze the piston in, and they went in really easy, so that's not bound up. So this looks like it's going to be good to go. The pads are good. You can see there's plenty of meat. So the next thing to do here will be to get that replaced with a new one, get them bled, and get these back brakes working. Right, so this lever here, or extension rod, bolts onto there, which is attached to here. Anyway, this bolt, it's an 8mm on one side and a 10mm on the other, so we'll just get that off. Right, so the hydraulic line is 12mm. So that's loosened. It's easier to get it off once these are free. And these are 8mm. They're 8mm with a 10mm nut on the back. So I might get somewhere now. And there it is. Okay, let's get the new one on. New one comes with a new banjo bolt and washers, so we'll swap those out as well. So we'll just get this banjo bolt threaded in first, make things a bit easier. So next thing is to get the bottom of it on. You can see this adjustment there, but before I do, I might take this off and just clean all of this up. So we've got this all looking a lot better. It's nicely lubricated in there now, working good. This was actually upside down, so I flipped that over, I straightened that out, so that's all pretty good now. Actually took that off, give it a clean up, painted it, so this is all looking much better now. So we'll get on with bleeding this and getting these back brakes working. So that took a bit of bleeding, but now at least we have a back brake. It's kind of strange how it works, because you would expect to only get so far and start getting some pressure, but it kind of goes all the way. Still stops the back wheel pretty good. So if it works, it works. Okay, we have some back brakes now, even though I consider them not all that convincing, but as long as they work. I've actually got the exhaust off to do a bit of cosmetics on that, and so what have we got left? Got the chain to get on. I've actually got a chain guard to go on there to make that a little bit safer. I've got a little bit of wiring to tidy up here. I've removed a whole pile of just dangly bits and that, because this has actually got electric start, so for that to work it needs a battery. I don't have a battery. It starts, well, you know, it's got spark, it'll kick start, so that's just all extra that doesn't need to be there, so I've taken that off. And right, so I'll get on with some of the cosmetics and get it put back together, because I think we're, dare I say, approaching some sort of completion, and we'll see what we got. Okay, we've got some progress. As you can see, it's starting to look a lot more complete. I've got the exhaust on. It's the most notable thing. That was all rusty, now it's painted, so that's looking much better. It looked pretty tacky with that all rusted, so all good there. It used to be a big bunch of wires hanging out there, but that's all tucked away now, and I took a few more bits and pieces off. There was a wire going up to, where is it? So I've taken it off. It came up to like a brake switch on here, so it doesn't have that anymore. So we're going minimalist, as long as it all works. Anything else is just extra. What else have we got? We have our chain guard on. We've got the chain on. It was a bit sad, but it's all clean and lubed up now, and we're on, so it's looking good. And it's all pretty tidy now, so I think we could just about put the last bits and pieces on, which would be pretty much just the tank and the plastics, including the seat, and I think we're done. So just as a quick side note, I was having a complaint about this back brake, but I did adjust this rod here just to try and get like the throw of the piston in there better. So it's as long as I can make it. This is stretched that way on its mounts just so I can get as much travel on there as I can, but it made a little bit of a difference, but I just think it's not designed very well. Anyway, we'll put those bits on and I'll show you the result. So here we are with the finished product, and it looks much better than it did when I first picked it up off the curb. It actually looks like someone would like to own it now. So now that we're done, I'd like to thank everyone for following along and hanging out for such a long video and such a long time between videos. So hopefully my next one won't be quite so long between videos, and we'll catch us all next time round. And I'll pop this little bike up for sale, and someone's going to have a lot of fun with it in the future. So once again, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and see you soon.